CLEP History World War II Europe. Question 1. Which answer best matches this CLEP History World War II Europe clue? Atlantic trade linked Europe, Africa, and the Americas through goods and enslaved labor? Option A. Triangular trade. Option B. Montesquieu. Option C. Stonewall Uprising. Option D. Mercantilism. The correct answer is option A. Triangular trade. This points to triangular trade because the system shows the economic connections of the colonial Atlantic world. Montesquieu points instead to a philosopher advocated separation of powers. Stonewall Uprising points instead to resistance to a police raid helped energize the LGBTQ rights movement, and mercantilism points instead to colonies supplied raw materials and markets for the mother country. Question 2. How would a CLEP history question most likely test this clue? Parliament taxed imports such as glass, paper and tea. Option A. Enlightenment. Option B. Charlemagne. Option C. Renaissance humanism. Option D. Townsend Acts. The correct answer is option D. Townsend Acts. This points to Townsend Acts because the acts renewed colonial protests against imperial taxation. Enlightenment points instead to thinkers emphasized reason, natural rights, and criticism of tradition. Charlemagne points instead to a Frankish ruler built a large empire and supported Christian learning, and Renaissance humanism points instead to scholars emphasized classical learning and human achievement. Question 3. Why does this clue matter for CLEP History World War II Europe? Liberals and nationalists challenged conservative governments across Europe? Option A. French and Indian War. Option B. Revolutions of 1848. Option C. Gilded Age. Option D. Chinese Exclusion Act. The correct answer is option B. Revolutions of 1848. This points to revolutions of 1848 because most revolutions failed but revealed deep social and political tensions. French and Indian War points instead to Britain gained territory but created debt that led to new colonial taxes. Gilded Age points instead to rapid industrial growth hid deep inequality and political corruption, and Chinese Exclusion Act points instead to federal law restricted immigration from China in 1882. Question 4. When reviewing CLEP History World War II Europe, which answer fits this clue? Greek poems such as the Iliad and Odyssey preserved heroic ideals. Option A. Homeric epics. Option B. Bill of Rights. Option C. Justinian Code. Option D. Mussolini. The correct answer is option A. Homeric epics. This points to Homeric epics because the epics shaped Greek cultural identity. Bill of Rights points instead to the first 10 amendments protected individual liberties against federal abuse. Justinian Code points instead to Byzantine legal reform organized Roman law, and Mussolini points instead to Italy's fascist leader built a dictatorship after World War I. Question 5. Where in CLEP History World War II Europe, which answer fits this clue? Enslaved people were counted partially for representation and taxation? Option A. 3-5 Compromise. Option B. Reign of Terror. Option C. World War I alliances. Option D. End of the Cold War. The correct answer is option A. 3-5 Compromise. This points to 3-5 Compromise because the compromise showed slavery's influence on constitutional politics. Reign of Terror points instead to radical revolutionaries used executions to defend the French Republic. World War I alliances points instead to entangling alliances turned a regional crisis into a wider war, and End of the Cold War points instead to Soviet collapse ended the decades-long US-Soviet rivalry. Question 6. Identify the answer connected to this CLEP History World War II Europe clue. Laws of motion and gravity unified celestial and earthly physics. Option A. Periodization. Option B. Louisiana Purchase. Option C. Darwinism. Option D. Newton. The correct answer is option D. Newton. This points to Newton because his work became a foundation of modern science. Periodization points instead to history is divided into meaningful eras based on patterns and turning points. Louisiana Purchase points instead to Jefferson doubled the nation's territory through a purchase from France, and Darwinism points instead to evolution by natural selection challenged older views of life and nature. Question 7. Choose the term that completes this history clue. A federal agency assisted formerly enslaved people after the Civil War. Option A. Homeric epics. Option B. Freedmen's Bureau. Option C. Primary source. Option D. Napoleon Bonaparte. The correct answer is option B, Freedmen's Bureau. This points to Freedmen's Bureau because it provided help with education, labor contracts, and basic needs. Homeric epics points instead to Greek poems such as the Iliad and Odyssey preserved heroic ideals. Primary source points instead to a document or artifact comes from the time being studied, and Napoleon Bonaparte points instead to a military leader spread French reforms while building an empire. Question 8. Select the best match for this CLEP-style clue. The federal government assumed debts and supported a national bank. Option A, Hamilton's financial plan. Option B, Alexander the Great. Option C, Prohibition. Option D, Homestead Act. The correct answer is option A, Hamilton's financial plan. This points to Hamilton's financial plan because the plan strengthened federal credit and promoted a more commercial economy. Alexander the Great points instead to Macedonian conquest spread Greek culture across the eastern Mediterranean and Near East. Prohibition points instead to the 18th Amendment banned the manufacture and sale of alcohol, and Homestead Act points instead to settlers received western land after meeting residency and improvement requirements. Question 9. Determine which answer explains this CLEP history. World War II Europe clue. A Virginia assembly gave colonists an early model of representative government. Option A, Seneca Falls Convention. Option B, Dred Scott Decision. Option C, House of Burgesses. Option D, Homeric epics. The correct answer is option C, House of Burgesses. This points to House of Burgesses because it was an early elected legislative body in colonial Virginia. Seneca Falls Convention points instead to women's rights activists issued a declaration demanding equality. Dred Scott Decision points instead to the Supreme Court denied black citizenship and rejected limits on slavery in territories, and Homeric epics points instead to Greek poems such as the Iliad and Odyssey preserved heroic ideals. Question 10. Recognize the event or idea behind this clue. A later interpretation explains or analyzes past events. Option A, Monroe Doctrine. Option B, mercantilism. Option C, John Brown's raid. Option D, secondary source. The correct answer is option D, secondary source. This points to secondary source because secondary sources synthesize evidence after the fact. Monroe Doctrine points instead to the United States warned European powers against new colonization in the Americas. Mercantilism points instead to colonies supplied raw materials and markets for the mother country, and John Brown's raid points instead to an abolitionist attack on Harper's Ferry frightened many Southerners. Question 11. Pinpoint the best answer for this history clue. U.S. aid rebuilt Western Europe and strengthened anti-communist governments. Option A, New Imperialism. Option B, Marshall Plan in Europe. Option C, Treaty of Versailles. Option D, Indian Removal Act. The correct answer is option B, Marshall Plan in Europe. This points to Marshall Plan in Europe because the plan linked recovery with Cold War strategy. New imperialism points instead to European states' expanded control over Africa and Asia in the late 19th century. Treaty of Versailles points instead to the peace settlement punished Germany and created the League of Nations, and Indian Removal Act points instead to federal policy forced many native peoples west of the Mississippi. Question 12. Spot the answer that matches this exam clue. The Soviet satellite launch intensified Cold War competition in science and education. Option A, Sputnik. Option B, Stamp Act. Option C, Cotton Gin. Option D, Byzantine Empire. The correct answer is option A, Sputnik. This points to Sputnik because the event raised U.S. fears of falling behind technologically. Stamp Act points instead to Parliament taxed printed materials and sparked colonial protests over representation. Cotton Gin points instead to Eli Whitney's machine made cotton processing faster and expanded slavery's profitability, and Byzantine Empire points instead to the Eastern Roman Empire preserved Roman law and Greek culture. Question 13. Compare in CLEP history World War II Europe, which answer fits this clue. A French scandal over anti-Semitism and military injustice divided society. Option A, Dreyfus Affair. Option B, New Imperialism. Option C, NATO. Option D, Proclamation of 1763. The correct answer is option A, Dreyfus Affair. This points to Dreyfus Affair because the affair revealed tensions in the Third Republic. New imperialism points instead to European states' expanded control over Africa and Asia in the late 19th century. NATO points instead to a military alliance linked the United States with Western Europe, and proclamation of 1763 points instead to Britain tried to limit colonial settlement west of the Appalachians. Question 14. Connect this CLEP History World War II Europe clue to the right answer. Women organized for voting rights and legal equality? Option A, women's suffrage. Option B, Federal Reserve Act. Option C, Socrates. Option D, storming of the Bastille. The correct answer is option A, women's suffrage. This points to women's suffrage because the movement challenged gender limits in political life. Federal Reserve Act points instead to Congress created a central banking system to stabilize money and credit. Socrates points instead to a philosopher questioned assumptions and emphasized ethical inquiry, and storming of the Bastille points instead to a Paris crowd attacked a royal prison in 1789. Question 15. Trace this clue to the correct historical topic. Observations with a telescope supported heliocentrism and challenged church-backed views? Option A, Galileo. Option B, Petrarch. Option C, Compromise of 1877. Option D, Reaganomics. The correct answer is option A, Galileo. This points to Galileo because his work became a symbol of scientific conflict with authority. Petrarch points instead to a Renaissance writer helped revive classical Latin texts and humanism. Compromise of 1877 points instead to the disputed 1876 election ended with federal troops leaving the South, and Reaganomics points instead to tax cuts, deregulation, and supply-side ideas shaped 1980s economic policy. Question 16. Explain which answer fits this CLEP history clue. Macedonian conquest spread Greek culture across the eastern Mediterranean and Near East? Option A, Hammurabi's Code. Option B, Alexander the Great. Option C, Boston Tea Party. Option D, Baby Boom. The correct answer is option B, Alexander the Great. This points to Alexander the Great because his empire helped create the Hellenistic world. Hammurabi's Code points instead to a Babylonian law code showed written legal rules and social hierarchy. Boston Tea Party points instead to colonists protested the Tea Act by destroying tea in Boston Harbor, and Baby Boom points instead to birth rates rose after World War II. Question 17. Interpret this clue and choose the best answer. Farmers demanded reforms such as free silver, railroad regulation, and direct democracy? Option A, Roe v. Wade. Option B, Diocletian. Option C, Black Death. Option D, populist movement. The correct answer is option D, populist movement. This points to populist movement because the movement reflected rural anger over debt, prices, and corporate power. Roe v. Wade points instead to the Supreme Court recognized a constitutional right to abortion in 1973. Diocletian points instead to a Roman emperor divided administration to manage imperial crisis, and Black Death points instead to plague killed millions and disrupted Europe's economy and society. Question 18. Analyze this history clue and find the match. Britain gained territory but created debt that led to new colonial taxes? Option A, European Coal and Steel Community. Option B, French and Indian War. Option C, English Civil War. Option D, Fascism. The correct answer is option B, French and Indian War. This points to French and Indian War because the war reshaped North America and intensified imperial tensions. European Coal and Steel Community points instead to Western European states' pooled coal and steel production after World War II. English Civil War points instead to conflict between king and parliament challenged royal absolutism. And Fascism points instead to authoritarian nationalism rejected liberal democracy and communism. Question 19. Recall the answer linked to this clue. A Union victory marked a major turning point in the Civil War? Option A, Gettysburg. Option B, Glorious Revolution. Option C, Punic Wars. Option D, Peloponnesian War. The correct answer is option A, Gettysburg. This points to Gettysburg because the battle halted Lee's invasion of the North. Glorious Revolution points instead to England replaced James II and strengthened parliamentary power. Punic Wars points instead to Rome defeated Carthage and gained dominance in the western Mediterranean, and Peloponnesian War points instead to Athens and Sparta fought a long war that weakened Greek city-states. Question 20. Name the event, idea, or policy described here. European Christians launched military campaigns toward the Eastern Mediterranean. Option A, Italian unification. Option B, Crusades. Option C, Scopes trial. Option D, cotton gin. The correct answer is option B, Crusades. This points to Crusades because the Crusades increased contact and conflict between regions. Italian unification points instead to Piedmont, Garibaldi, and nationalist politics helped create Italy. Scopes trial points instead to a trial over teaching evolution highlighted conflict between modernism and fundamentalism. And cotton gin points instead to Eli Whitney's machine made cotton processing faster and expanded slavery's profitability. Question 21. Match this CLEP history. World War II Europe. Clue with the correct answer. Plague killed millions and disrupted Europe's economy and society. Option A, Jacksonian democracy. Option B, Mussolini. Option C, Persian Empire. Option D, Black Death. The correct answer is option D, Black Death. This points to Black Death because the pandemic weakened labor systems and changed social relations. Jacksonian democracy points instead to politics expanded white male suffrage and celebrated the common man. Mussolini points instead to Italy's fascist leader built a dictatorship after World War I, and Persian Empire points instead to a large empire used satraps and roads to govern diverse peoples. Question 22. Distinguish the correct answer from similar history topics. Britain tried to limit colonial settlement west of the Appalachians. Option A, Black Codes. Option B, Articles of Confederation. Option C, Proclamation of 1763. Option D, Italian unification. The correct answer is option C, Proclamation of 1763. This points to Proclamation of 1763 because the policy angered colonists who wanted access to Western lands. Black Codes points instead to Southern laws restricted the freedom of formerly enslaved people. Articles of Confederation points instead to the first national government had a weak central authority and no power to tax directly, and Italian unification points instead to Piedmont, Garibaldi, and nationalist politics helped create Italy. Question 23. Locate the correct choice for this CLEP clue. Improved farming increased food production before industrialization. Option A, Calvinism. Option B, Estates minus General. Option C, Agricultural Revolution. Option D, Brown v. Board of Education. The correct answer is option C, Agricultural Revolution. This points to agricultural revolution because higher productivity supported population growth and urban labor. Calvinism points instead to a Protestant movement emphasized predestination and disciplined communities. Estates minus General points instead to a French representative body met in 1789 during a fiscal crisis, and Brown v. Board of Education points instead to the Supreme Court declared segregated public schools unconstitutional. Question 24. Review this clue and select the best answer. Cornwallis surrendered after American and French forces trapped him. Option A, New Imperialism. Option B, Triangular Trade. Option C, Martin Luther. Option D, Yorktown. The correct answer is option D, Yorktown. This points to Yorktown because the victory effectively ended major fighting in the Revolution. New imperialism points instead to European states' expanded control over Africa and Asia in the late 19th century. Triangular trade points instead to Atlantic trade linked Europe, Africa, and the Americas through goods and enslaved labor. And Martin Luther points instead to a monk challenged indulgences and helped launch the Protestant Reformation. Question 25. Decide which option this CLEP history clue describes. Nazi leadership promoted dictatorship, expansionism, and racial ideology. Option A, Hitler. Option B, Stonewall Uprising. Option C, Articles of Confederation. Option D, Weimar Republic. The correct answer is option A, Hitler. This points to Hitler because Hitler's rule led to World War II and the Holocaust. Stonewall Uprising points instead to resistance to a police raid helped energize the LGBTQ rights movement. Articles of Confederation points instead to the first national government had a weak central authority and no power to tax directly, and Weimar Republic points instead to Germany's post-World War I democracy faced inflation, extremism, and legitimacy problems. Question 26. Evaluate the options and choose the one that fits. Byzantine disputes over religious images divided church and empire. Option A, radical republicans. Option B, iconoclasm. Option C, Socrates. Option D, Aristotle. The correct answer is option B, iconoclasm. This points to iconoclasm because the controversy shows tensions over worship and authority. Radical Republicans points instead to a congressional faction demanded stronger Reconstruction protections for freed people. Socrates points instead to a philosopher questioned assumptions and emphasized ethical inquiry, and Aristotle points instead to a philosopher emphasized observation, logic, and classification. Question 27. Consider this clue and identify the historical match. Fear of radicals and communism led to raids and restrictions after World War I. Option A, Aristotle. Option B, Red Scare. Option C, Hitler. Option D, Second Great Awakening. The correct answer is option B, Red Scare. This points to Red Scare because the panic reflected anxiety over revolution, labor unrest, and immigration. Aristotle points instead to a philosopher emphasized observation, logic, and classification. Hitler points instead to Nazi leadership promoted dictatorship, expansionism, and racial ideology, and Second Great Awakening points instead to revivalism inspired reform movements, such as abolition and temperance. Question 28. Predict the answer. A CLEP item is targeting mechanized production transformed work, cities, and economies. Option A, Industrial Revolution. Option B, Roe v. Wade. Option C, Secession. Option D, Great Awakening. The correct answer is option A, Industrial Revolution. This points to Industrial Revolution because industrialization shifted Europe toward factory-based production. Roe v. Wade points instead to the Supreme Court recognized a constitutional right to abortion in 1973. Secession points instead to Southern states left the Union after Lincoln's election, and Great Awakening points instead to religious revivals stressed personal conversion and challenged established authority. Question 29. Notice the key clue and choose the matching answer. A philosopher emphasized observation, logic, and classification. Option A, Constantine. Option B, Aristotle. Option C, Federal Reserve Act. Option D, Petrarch. The correct answer is option B, Aristotle. This points to Aristotle because his writings influenced science, ethics, and politics for centuries. Constantine points instead to a Roman emperor legalized Christianity and founded Constantinople. Federal Reserve Act points instead to Congress created a central banking system to stabilize money and credit, and Petrarch points instead to a Renaissance writer helped revive classical Latin texts and humanism. Question 30. Estimate which topic this clue would test. The first 10 amendments protected individual liberties against federal abuse. Option A, Bill of Rights. Option B, Washington's neutrality policy. Option C, point of view. Option D, Byzantine Empire. The correct answer is option A, Bill of Rights. This points to Bill of Rights because these amendments helped answer anti-federalist concerns about rights. Washington's neutrality policy points instead to the young United States avoided taking sides in European wars. Point of view points instead to a source reflects the author's position, interests, and audience, and Byzantine Empire points instead to the Eastern Roman Empire preserved Roman law and Greek culture. Question 31. Judge which option best completes this clue. A Frankish ruler built a large empire and supported Christian learning. Option A, Charlemagne. Option B, European Union. Option C, investiture controversy. Option D, progressive era. The correct answer is option A, Charlemagne. This points to Charlemagne because his coronation linked kingship with the church in medieval Europe. European Union points instead to European integration created shared institutions and a common market. Investiture controversy points instead to popes and emperors fought over appointing bishops, and progressive era points instead to reformers targeted corruption, monopolies, unsafe workplaces, and social injustice. Question 32. Assess in CLEP history World War II Europe, which answer fits this clue. Colonies supplied raw materials and markets for the mother country. Option A, Peloponnesian War. Option B, French and Indian War. Option C, Prohibition. Option D, Mercantilism. The correct answer is option D, Mercantilism. This points to mercantilism because the system treated colonies as sources of wealth for an imperial power. Peloponnesian War points instead to Athens and Sparta fought a long war that weakened Greek city-states. French and Indian War points instead to Britain gained territory but created debt that led to new colonial taxes, and Prohibition points instead to the 18th Amendment banned the manufacture and sale of alcohol. Question 33. Classify this clue under the right historical answer. Analysis compares what stayed the same and what shifted over time. Option A, Washington's neutrality policy. Option B, United Nations. Option C, Montgomery bus boycott. Option D, continuity and change. The correct answer is option D, continuity and change. This points to continuity and change because this skill is common in history interpretation. Washington's neutrality policy points instead to the young United States avoided taking sides in European wars. United Nations points instead to an international organization was created after World War II to promote peace and cooperation, and Montgomery bus boycott points instead to African Americans protested segregated buses after Rosa Parks' arrest. Question 34. Infer the answer from this short CLEP clue. The Bolshevik leader promoted vanguard revolution and withdrew Russia from World War I. Option A, Lenin. Option B, fall of Western Rome. Option C, 17th Amendment. Option D, glorious revolution. The correct answer is option A, Lenin. This points to Lenin because his leadership shaped early Soviet policy. Fall of Western Rome points instead to political weakness, invasions, and economic strain ended imperial rule in the West. 17th Amendment points instead to senators became elected directly by voters, and Glorious Revolution points instead to England replaced James II and strengthened parliamentary power. Question 35. Link this clue to the correct exam topic. A destructive European war mixed religious and political conflict. Option A, 30 Years' War. Option B, Muckrakers. Option C, Shays Rebellion. Option D, Declaration of Independence. The correct answer is option A, 30 Years' War. This points to 30 Years' War because the war devastated Central Europe and ended with the Peace of Westphalia. Muckrakers points instead to journalists, exposed corporate abuse, corruption, and urban problems. Shays Rebellion points instead to farmers' unrest, exposed weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation, and Declaration of Independence points instead to colonists' justified separation by invoking natural rights and grievances against the king. Question 36. Uncover the answer behind this history clue. Landholding and personal loyalty structured medieval power. Option A, Articles of Confederation. Option B, feudalism. Option C, Whiskey Rebellion. Option D, Italian unification. The correct answer is option B, feudalism. This points to feudalism because the system organized political and military obligations. Articles of Confederation points instead to the first national government had a weak central authority and no power to tax directly. Whiskey Rebellion points instead to Washington used federal power to enforce an excise tax, and Italian unification points instead to Piedmont, Garibaldi, and nationalist politics helped create Italy. Question 37. Test your recall by choosing the answer for this clue. Popes and emperors fought over appointing bishops. Option A, investiture controversy. Option B, compromise of 1850. Option C, French and Indian War. Option D, Brown v. Board of Education. The correct answer is option A, investiture controversy. This points to investiture controversy because the conflict tested church and state power in medieval Europe. Compromise of 1850 points instead to Congress admitted California as free and strengthened the Fugitive Slave Act. French and Indian War points instead to Britain gained territory but created debt that led to new colonial taxes, and Brown v. Board of Education points instead to the Supreme Court declared segregated public schools unconstitutional. Question 38. Practice in CLEP History. World War II Europe. Which answer fits this clue? The Supreme Court declared segregated public schools unconstitutional. Option A, Brown v. Board of Education. Option B, Marshall Plan in Europe. Option C, secession. Option D, Wilmot Proviso. The correct answer is option A, Brown v. Board of Education. This points to Brown v. Board of Education because the decision challenged the legal foundation of Jim Crow segregation. Marshall Plan in Europe points instead to U.S. aid rebuilt Western Europe and strengthened anti-communist governments. Secession points instead to Southern states left the Union after Lincoln's election, and Wilmot Proviso points instead to a proposal tried to ban slavery in lands gained from Mexico. Question 39. Challenge yourself to identify this history clue. Washington used federal power to enforce an excise tax. Option A. Great Compromise. Option B. Gilded Age. Option C. Whiskey Rebellion. Option D. Glorious Revolution. The correct answer is option C. Whiskey Rebellion. This points to Whiskey Rebellion because the episode demonstrated the strength of the new government. Great Compromise points instead to the Constitution created a bicameral Congress balancing large and small states. Gilded Age points instead to rapid industrial growth, deep inequality and political corruption, and Glorious Revolution points instead to England replaced James II and strengthened parliamentary power. Question 40. Confirm the correct answer for this clue. A philosopher questioned assumptions and emphasized ethical inquiry. Option A. Congress of Vienna. Option B. Stamp Act. Option C. Socrates. Option D. Peace of Westphalia. The correct answer is option C. Socrates. This points to Socrates because his method of questioning became central to Western philosophy. Congress of Vienna points instead to European powers' restored balance after Napoleon's defeat. Stamp Act points instead to Parliament taxed printed materials and sparked colonial protests over representation, and Peace of Westphalia points instead to treaties helped establish state sovereignty after the 30 Years' War. Question 41. Verify which option matches this CLEP history clue. The Roman Empire experienced relative peace and prosperity. Option A. Point of view. Option B. Manifest destiny. Option C. Pax Romana. Option D. Greek polis. The correct answer is option C. Pax Romana. This points to Pax Romana because this period helped trade and imperial culture flourish. Point of view points instead to a source reflects the author's position, interests, and audience. Manifest destiny points instead to many Americans believed the nation was destined to expand westward, and Greek polis points instead to city-states such as Athens and Sparta shaped Greek political life. Question 42. Solve this quick history clue. Citizens participated directly in political decision-making. Option A. Civil Rights Act of 1964. Option B. Athenian democracy. Option C. Spanish Armada. Option D. NATO. The correct answer is option B. Athenian democracy. This points to Athenian democracy because Athens developed a form of direct democracy for male citizens. Civil Rights Act of 1964 points instead to Congress outlawed segregation in public accommodations and employment discrimination. Spanish Armada points instead to Spain's failed invasion of England weakened Spanish prestige, and NATO points instead to a military alliance linked the United States with Western Europe. Question 43. Figure out the correct answer from this clue. History is divided into meaningful eras based on patterns and turning points. Option A. Scientific Revolution. Option B. Congress of Vienna. Option C. World War I. Option D. Periodization. The correct answer is option D. Periodization. This points to periodization because periodization helps organize large amounts of content. Scientific revolution points instead to thinkers used observation and mathematics to challenge older views of nature. Congress of Vienna points instead to European powers' restored balance after Napoleon's defeat, and World War I points instead to U.S. entry helped the Allies and increased federal power at home. Question 44. Find in CLEP history World War II Europe, which answer fits this clue. A philosopher argued for natural rights and government by consent. Option A. Bill of Rights. Option B. Embargo Act. Option C. John Locke. Option D. Machiavelli. The correct answer is option C. John Locke. This points to John Locke because his ideas influenced liberalism and revolutionary thought. Bill of Rights points instead to the first 10 amendments protected individual liberties against federal abuse. Embargo Act points instead to Jefferson restricted foreign trade to pressure Britain and France, and Machiavelli points instead to a Renaissance writer analyzed political power in The Prince. Question 45. Remember in CLEP History World War II Europe, which answer fits this clue? A severe economic collapse caused mass unemployment and banking failures. Option A, German unification. Option B, Great Depression. Option C, scholasticism. Option D, Montgomery bus boycott. The correct answer is option B, Great Depression. This points to Great Depression because the crisis transformed expectations of federal economic responsibility. German unification points instead to Bismarck used diplomacy and war to unify Germany under Prussia. Scholasticism points instead to medieval thinkers used reason to examine theology, and Montgomery bus boycott points instead to African Americans protested segregated buses after Rosa Parks' arrest. Question 46. Highlight the answer described by this clue. Tax cuts, deregulation, and supply-side ideas shaped 1980s economic policy. Option A, Reaganomics. Option B, source bias. Option C, Aristotle. Option D, Bacon's Rebellion. The correct answer is option A, Reaganomics. This points to Reaganomics because the approach emphasized markets and reduced government intervention. Source bias points instead to evidence may be shaped by an author's motives or assumptions. Aristotle points instead to a philosopher emphasized observation, logic, and classification, and Bacon's Rebellion points instead to frontier unrest in Virginia exposed tensions over land, class, and colonial leadership. Question 47. Separate the correct answer from close distractors. Popular sovereignty reopened the slavery question in Western territories. Option A, Kansas-Nebraska Act. Option B, Second Great Awakening. Option C, Alien and Sedition Acts. Option D, Gilded Age. The correct answer is option A, Kansas-Nebraska Act. This points to Kansas-Nebraska Act because the act undermined the Missouri Compromise and fueled violence in Kansas. Second Great Awakening points instead to revivalism-inspired reform movements such as abolition and temperance. Alien and Sedition Acts points instead to Federalists' restricted criticism and immigration during conflict with France, and Gilded Age points instead to rapid industrial growth, deep inequality, and political corruption. Question 48. Clarify which history topic this clue describes. Soviet collapse ended the decades-long US-Soviet rivalry. Option A, John Brown's raid. Option B, Black Codes. Option C, end of the Cold War. Option D, source bias. The correct answer is option C, end of the Cold War. This points to end of the Cold War because the event transformed global politics after 1991. John Brown's raid points instead to an abolitionist attack on Harper's Ferry frightened many Southerners. Black Codes points instead to Southern laws restricted the freedom of formerly enslaved people, and source bias points instead to evidence may be shaped by an author's motives or assumptions. Question 49. Relate this clue to the correct CLEP history answer. A political scandal led to President Nixon's resignation. Option A, Intolerable Acts. Option B, Watergate. Option C, Justinian Code. Option D, Fascism. The correct answer is option B, Watergate. This points to Watergate because the scandal raised concerns about executive power and accountability. Intolerable Acts points instead to Britain punished Massachusetts after the Boston Tea Party. Justinian Code points instead to Byzantine legal reform organized Roman law, and Fascism points instead to authoritarian nationalism rejected liberal democracy and communism. Question 50. Detect the answer hidden in this clue. Clay promoted tariffs, a national bank, and internal improvements. Option A, Darwinism. Option B, American system. Option C, Punic Wars. Option D, Mayflower Compact. The correct answer is option B, American system. This points to American system because the plan aimed to strengthen national economic development. Darwinism points instead to evolution by natural selection challenged older views of life and nature. Punic Wars points instead to Rome defeated Carthage and gained dominance in the Western Mediterranean, and Mayflower Compact points instead to Pilgrims agreed to self-government before settling at Plymouth. Question 51. Differentiate in CLEP History World War II Europe, which answer fits this clue. Resistance to a police raid helped energize the LGBTQ rights movement. Option A, Weimar Republic. Option B, Social Security Act. Option C, Stonewall Uprising. Option D, Declaration of Independence. The correct answer is option C, Stonewall Uprising. This points to Stonewall Uprising because the event became a symbol of modern gay rights activism. Weimar Republic points instead to Germany's post-World War I democracy faced inflation, extremism, and legitimacy problems. Social Security Act points instead to the New Deal created pensions and unemployment insurance, and Declaration of Independence points instead to colonists' justified separation by invoking natural rights and grievances against the king. Question 52. Carefully choose which option matches this clue. Lincoln declared enslaved people free in areas still rebelling against the Union. Option A, Alexander the Great. Option B, abolitionism. Option C, Emancipation Proclamation. Option D, Aristotle. The correct answer is option C, Emancipation Proclamation. This points to Emancipation Proclamation because it shifted the Civil War toward a war against slavery. Alexander the Great points instead to Macedonian conquest spread Greek culture across the eastern Mediterranean and Near East. Abolitionism points instead to reformers demanded the end of slavery through moral and political arguments, and Aristotle points instead to a philosopher emphasized observation, logic, and classification. Question 53. Question: which answer a CLEP item would expect a military leader spread French reforms while building an empire? Option A, Napoleon Bonaparte. Option B, Treaty of Versailles. Option C, Black Codes. Option D, Spanish Armada. The correct answer is option A, Napoleon Bonaparte. This points to Napoleon Bonaparte because his rule reshaped European politics and law. Treaty of Versailles points instead to the peace settlement punished Germany and created the League of Nations. Black Codes points instead to Southern laws restricted the freedom of formerly enslaved people, and Spanish Armada points instead to Spain's failed invasion of England weakened Spanish prestige. Question 54. Explore this clue and identify the correct answer. The United States supplied allies before entering World War II. Option A, Stamp Act. Option B, Lend-Lease. Option C, Printing Press. Option D, 17th Amendment. The correct answer is option B, Lend-Lease. This points to Lend-Lease because the policy moved the nation away from strict neutrality. Stamp Act points instead to Parliament taxed printed materials and sparked colonial protests over representation. Printing Press points instead to movable type spread books and ideas more quickly, and 17th Amendment points instead to senators became elected directly by voters. Question 55. Revisit this history clue and choose its match. The 18th Amendment banned the manufacture and sale of alcohol. Option A, Peloponnesian War. Option B, Japanese-American internment. Option C, secondary source. Option D, prohibition. The correct answer is option D, prohibition. This points to prohibition because the policy reflected progressive moral reform and created enforcement problems. Peloponnesian War points instead to Athens and Sparta fought a long war that weakened Greek city-states. Japanese-American internment points instead to the U.S. government forcibly relocated Japanese Americans during World War II, and secondary source points instead to a later interpretation explains or analyzes past events. Question 56. Discover which answer. This CLEP clue describes scholars emphasized classical learning and human achievement. Option A, Machiavelli. Option B, Renaissance humanism. Option C, Hammurabi's Code. Option D, Emancipation Proclamation. The correct answer is option B, Renaissance humanism. This points to Renaissance humanism because humanism shaped Renaissance art, education, and literature. Machiavelli points instead to a Renaissance writer analyzed political power in The Prince. Hammurabi's Code points instead to a Babylonian law code showed written legal rules and social hierarchy, and Emancipation Proclamation points instead to Lincoln declared enslaved people free in areas still rebelling against the Union. Question 57. Investigate the correct choice for this clue. Radical revolutionaries used executions to defend the French Republic. Option A, Reign of Terror. Option B, 100 Years' War. Option C, GI Bill. Option D, Fall of the Berlin Wall. The correct answer is option A, Reign of Terror. This points to Reign of Terror because the period showed the revolution's violent radical phase. 100 Years' War points instead to a long conflict between England and France strengthened national identities. GI Bill points instead to veterans received education and housing benefits after World War II, and Fall of the Berlin Wall points instead to East Germans opened the barrier dividing Berlin in 1989. Question 58. Read in Clep History World War II Europe, which answer fits this clue? Artists and writers emphasized emotion, nature and individual expression? Option A, Jacksonian democracy. Option B, secession. Option C, romanticism. Option D, liberalism. The correct answer is option C, romanticism. This points to romanticism because the movement reacted against strict rationalism and industrial society. Jacksonian democracy points instead to politics, expanded white male suffrage and celebrated the common man. Secession points instead to southern states left the Union after Lincoln's election, and liberalism points instead to political ideology, emphasized rights, constitutionalism, and limited government. Question 59. Complete the exam minus style clue with the correct answer. Byzantine legal reform organized Roman law. Option A, Justinian Code. Option B, Proclamation of 1763. Option C, 13th Amendment. Option D, Embargo Act. The correct answer is option A, Justinian Code. This points to Justinian Code because the code influenced later European legal systems. Proclamation of 1763 points instead to Britain tried to limit colonial settlement west of the Appalachians. 13th Amendment points instead to slavery was abolished throughout the United States, and Embargo Act points instead to Jefferson restricted foreign trade to pressure Britain and France. Question 60. Decode this history clue and choose the right answer. European states expanded control over Africa and Asia in the late 19th century. Option A, Great Society. Option B, Byzantine Empire. Option C, New Imperialism. Option D, Punic Wars. The correct answer is option C, New Imperialism. This points to new imperialism because imperialism sought resources, markets, prestige, and strategic advantage. Great Society points instead to Lyndon Johnson's programs targeted poverty, education, healthcare, and civil rights. Byzantine Empire points instead to the Eastern Roman Empire preserved Roman law and Greek culture, and Punic Wars points instead to Rome defeated Carthage and gained dominance in the Western Mediterranean. Question 61. Rapidly identify the best answer for this clue. The United States promised aid to resist communist expansion. Option A, Compromise of 1877. Option B, Baby Boom. Option C, Truman Doctrine. Option D, Julius Caesar. The correct answer is option C, Truman Doctrine. This points to Truman Doctrine because the policy became a foundation of Cold War containment. Compromise of 1877 points instead to the disputed 1876 election ended with federal troops leaving the South. Baby Boom points instead to birth rates rose after World War II, and Julius Caesar points instead to a Roman general's dictatorship helped end the Republic. Question 62. Wisely choose which response matches this clue. Allied leaders discussed post-war Europe near the end of World War II. Option A, Revolutions of 1848. Option B, Embargo Act. Option C, Yalta Conference. Option D, Julius Caesar. The correct answer is option C, Yalta Conference. This points to Yalta Conference because the meeting shaped post-war divisions and Cold War tensions. Revolutions of 1848 points instead to liberals and nationalists challenged conservative governments across Europe. Embargo Act points instead to Jefferson restricted foreign trade to pressure Britain and France, and Julius Caesar points instead to a Roman general's dictatorship helped end the Republic. Question 63. Rank the choices by relevance and pick the best match. Italy's fascist leader built a dictatorship after World War I. Option A, Muckrakers. Option B, Dawes Act. Option C, Scholasticism. Option D, Mussolini. The correct answer is option D, Mussolini. This points to Mussolini because his regime became an early model of fascist rule. Muckrakers points instead to journalists, exposed corporate abuse, corruption, and urban problems. Dawes Act points instead to tribal lands were divided into individual allotments to assimilate Native Americans, and Scholasticism points instead to medieval thinkers used reason to examine theology. Question 64. Prioritize the clue and select the correct history answer. Evidence may be shaped by an author's motives or assumptions. Option A, Bolsheviks. Option B, source bias. Option C, European Union. Option D, investiture controversy. The correct answer is option B, source bias. This points to source bias because recognizing bias improves historical interpretation. Bolsheviks points instead to radical Marxists seized power in Russia in 1917. European Union points instead to European integration created shared institutions and a common market, and investiture controversy points instead to popes and emperors fought over appointing bishops. Question 65. Focus on the clue and pick the correct option. Treaties helped establish state sovereignty after the 30 Years' War. Option A, Peace of Westphalia. Option B, Baby Boom. Option C, Julius Caesar. Option D, Italian unification. The correct answer is option A, Peace of Westphalia. This points to Peace of Westphalia because the settlement reshaped European diplomacy. Baby boom points instead to birth rates rose after World War II, Julius Caesar points instead to a Roman general's dictatorship helped end the Republic, and Italian unification points instead to Piedmont, Garibaldi and nationalist politics helped create Italy. Question 66. Use this clue to identify the tested topic. Jefferson restricted foreign trade to pressure Britain and France. Option A, Magna Carta. Option B, Embargo Act. Option C, GI Bill. Option D, United Nations. The correct answer is option B, Embargo Act. This points to Embargo Act because the policy hurt American merchants and showed trade minus war risks. Magna Carta points instead to English nobles' forced limits on royal power in 1215. GI Bill points instead to veterans received education and housing benefits after World War II, and United Nations points instead to an international organization was created after World War II to promote peace and cooperation. Question 67. Apply your CLEP history knowledge to this clue. Schools developed around theology, law, medicine, and scholastic debate. Option A, women's suffrage. Option B, monorealism. Option C, medieval universities. Option D, industrial revolution. The correct answer is option C, medieval universities. This points to medieval universities because universities became centers of learning in medieval Europe. Women's suffrage points instead to women organized for voting rights and legal equality. Monorealism points instead to peasants' worked estates that formed the economic base of medieval society, and industrial revolution points instead to mechanized production transformed work, cities, and economies. Question 68. Between the clues, which answer fits this topic? A source reflects the author's position, interests, and audience. Option A, Galileo. Option B, point of view. Option C, Augustus. Option D, Korean War. The correct answer is option B, point of view. This points to point of view because understanding perspective helps evaluate evidence. Galileo points instead to observations with a telescope supported heliocentrism and challenged church-backed views. Augustus points instead to Rome's first emperor created the Principate and launched the Pax Romana, and Korean War points instead to a Cold War conflict began when North Korea invaded South Korea. Question 69. Promptly in CLEP history World War II Europe, which answer fits this clue? Historians compare sources to test reliability and build evidence. Option A, corroboration. Option B, Yorktown. Option C, Pearl Harbor. Option D, source bias. The correct answer is option A, corroboration. This points to corroboration because corroboration helps avoid relying on one source alone. Yorktown points instead to Cornwallis surrendered after American and French forces trapped him. Pearl Harbor points instead to Japan's attack brought the United States into World War II, and source bias points instead to evidence may be shaped by an author's motives or assumptions. Question 70. Smartly select a best historical match. Farmers' unrest exposed weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation. Option A, Seneca Falls Convention. Option B, Shays Rebellion. Option C, Treaty of Versailles. Option D, decolonization. The correct answer is option B, Shays Rebellion. This points to Shays Rebellion because the uprising convinced many leaders that the national government needed more power. Seneca Falls Convention points instead to women's rights activists issued a declaration demanding equality. Treaty of Versailles points instead to Germany faced blame, reparations, and territorial losses after World War I, and decolonization points instead to colonies in Asia and Africa gained independence after World War II. Question 71. Swiftly confirm the answer tied to this clue. Arms races and war planning contributed to tensions before World War I. Option A, militarism. Option B, corroboration. Option C, historical context. Option D. 15th Amendment. The correct answer is option A. Militarism. This points to militarism because militarism was one cause of pre-war instability. Corroboration points instead to historians compare sources to test reliability and build evidence. Historical context points instead to events are understood through the conditions and ideas of their time, and 15th Amendment points instead to voting rights could not be denied based on race, color, or previous servitude. Question 72. Diligently review and choose the matching answer. The Supreme Court denied black citizenship and rejected limits on slavery in territories. Option A. Dred Scott decision. Option B. Crimean War. Option C. Harlem Renaissance. Option D. Seneca Falls Convention. The correct answer is option A. Dred Scott decision. This points to Dred Scott decision because the decision inflamed sectional tensions before the Civil War. Crimean War points instead to a mid-19th century war exposed Russian weakness and shifted European diplomacy. Harlem Renaissance points instead to African American writers, artists, and musicians flourished in the 1920s, and Seneca Falls Convention points instead to women's rights activists issued a declaration demanding equality. Question 73. Immediately decide which option. The clue describes Congress balanced free and slave states while drawing a slavery line in the Louisiana Territory. Option A. Secondary source. Option B. Hitler. Option C. Missouri Compromise. Option D. Feudalism. The correct answer is option C. Missouri Compromise. This points to Missouri Compromise because the compromise temporarily managed sectional conflict over slavery. Secondary source points instead to a later interpretation explains or analyzes past events. Hitler points instead to Nazi leadership promoted dictatorship, expansionism, and racial ideology, and feudalism points instead to land holding and personal loyalty structured medieval power. Question 74. Narrow the choices to the answer matching this clue. City-states such as Athens and Sparta shaped Greek political life. Option A. Greek polis. Option B. Mexican-American War. Option C. Second Great Awakening. Option D. Fascism. The correct answer is option A. Greek polis. This points to Greek polis because the polis was the central political unit of ancient Greece. Mexican-American War points instead to U.S. victory added Western lands and reignited debate over slavery's expansion. Second Great Awakening points instead to revivalism-inspired reform movements, such as abolition and temperance, and fascism points instead to authoritarian nationalism rejected liberal democracy and communism. Question 75. Eliminate distractors and choose the matching answer. Pilgrims agreed to self-government before settling at Plymouth. Option A. Salutary neglect. Option B. Mayflower Compact. Option C. Triangular trade. Option D. Italian unification. The correct answer is option B. Mayflower Compact. This points to Mayflower Compact because it showed an early colonial commitment to majority rule and civil government. Salutary neglect points instead to Britain loosely enforced colonial rules before tightening control after 1763. Triangular trade points instead to Atlantic trade linked Europe, Africa, and the Americas through goods and enslaved labor, and Italian unification points instead to Piedmont, Garibaldi, and nationalist politics helped create Italy. Question 76. Again, which option fits after reading the CLEP-style clue? A deadly factory fire strengthened demands for workplace safety laws. Option A. Kansas-Nebraska Act. Option B. Japanese-American internment. Option C. Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. Option D. Whiskey Rebellion. The correct answer is option C. Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. This points to Triangle Shirtwaist Fire because the disaster exposed dangerous industrial working conditions. Kansas-Nebraska Act points instead to popular sovereignty reopened the slavery question in Western territories. Japanese-American internment points instead to the U.S. government forcibly relocated Japanese Americans during World War II, and Whiskey Rebellion points instead to Washington used federal power to enforce an excise tax. Question 77. Think through this clue and identify the answer. Old-regime inequality and fiscal crisis helped spark radical political change. Option A. Machiavelli. Option B. 100 Years' War. Option C. Muckrakers. Option D. French Revolution. The correct answer is option D. French Revolution. This points to French Revolution because the revolution transformed France and Europe. Machiavelli points instead to a Renaissance writer analyzed political power in The Prince. 100 Years' War points instead to a long conflict between England and France strengthened national identities, and Muckrakers points instead to journalists, exposed corporate abuse, corruption, and urban problems. Question 78. Quickly analyze which history answer fits authoritarian nationalism rejected liberal democracy and communism. Option A Athenian democracy, Option B fascism, Option C Shays Rebellion, Option D Transcontinental Railroad. The correct answer is Option B, fascism. This points to fascism because fascist movements emphasized state power, hierarchy, and militarism. Athenian democracy points instead to citizens participated directly in political decision-making. Shays Rebellion points instead to farmers' unrest exposed weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation, and Transcontinental Railroad points instead to rail lines connected the country and accelerated Western settlement and commerce. Question 79. Inspect a clue and select the correct option. England replaced James II and strengthened parliamentary power. Option A Compromise of 1850. Option B Glorious Revolution. Option C Women's suffrage. Option D Galileo. The correct answer is Option B, Glorious Revolution. This points to Glorious Revolution because the event limited monarchy and supported constitutional government. Compromise of 1850 points instead to Congress admitted California as free and strengthened the Fugitive Slave Act. Women's suffrage points instead to women organized for voting rights and legal equality, and Galileo points instead to observations with a telescope supported heliocentrism and challenged church-backed views. Question 80. Study this clue and choose the matching history term. A philosopher wrote dialogues and imagined rule by philosopher minus kings. Option A Plato. Option B Articles of Confederation. Option C Mayflower Compact. Option D Chinese Exclusion Act. The correct answer is Option A, Plato. This points to Plato because his works shaped idealist philosophy and political thought. Articles of Confederation points instead to the first national government had a weak central authority and no power to tax directly. Mayflower Compact points instead to Pilgrims agreed to self-government before settling at Plymouth, and Chinese Exclusion Act points instead to federal law restricted immigration from China in 1882. Question 81. Master this CLEP clue by selecting the answer. Freed people and poor whites farmed land for a share of the crop. Option A Social Security Act. Option B Sharecropping. Option C Byzantine Empire. Option D Scientific Revolution. The correct answer is Option B, sharecropping. This points to sharecropping because the system often trapped farmers in debt after Reconstruction. Social Security Act points instead to the New Deal created pensions and unemployment insurance. Byzantine Empire points instead to the Eastern Roman Empire preserved Roman law and Greek culture, and Scientific Revolution points instead to thinkers used observation and mathematics to challenge older views of nature. Question 82. Drill this history clue and pick the best match. US entry helped the Allies and increased federal power at home. Option A Sharecropping. Option B World War I. Option C Great Depression. Option D Bacon's Rebellion. The correct answer is Option B, World War I. This points to World War I because the war affected diplomacy, civil liberties, and the economy. Sharecropping points instead to freed people and poor whites farmed land for a share of the crop. Great Depression points instead to a severe economic collapse caused mass unemployment and banking failures, and Bacon's Rebellion points instead to frontier unrest in Virginia exposed tensions over land, class, and colonial leadership. Question 83. Speedily review and select the answer tied to this clue. Colonists justified separation by invoking natural rights and grievances against the king. Option A Declaration of Independence. Option B Louisiana Purchase. Option C Great Depression. Option D Crimean War. The correct answer is Option A Declaration of Independence. This points to Declaration of Independence because the document announced independence and explained the political reasons for it. Louisiana Purchase points instead to Jefferson doubled the nation's territory through a purchase from France. Great Depression points instead to a severe economic collapse caused mass unemployment and banking failures, and Crimean War points instead to a mid-19th century war exposed Russian weakness and shifted European diplomacy. Question 84. Check which option fits this exam clue. Religious revival stressed personal conversion and challenged established authority. Option A, Rousseau. Option B, Great Awakening. Option C, mercantilism. Option D, Transcontinental Railroad. The correct answer is option B, Great Awakening. This points to Great Awakening because the revivals shaped colonial religion and encouraged more individual religious choice. Rousseau points instead to a thinker emphasized the general will and popular sovereignty. Mercantilism points instead to colonies supplied raw materials and markets for the mother country, and Transcontinental Railroad points instead to rail lines connected the country and accelerated Western settlement and commerce. Question 85. Examine this clue and choose the correct answer. The United States warned European powers against new colonization in the Americas. Option A, Copernicus. Option B, John Brown's Raid. Option C, Gilded Age. Option D, Monroe Doctrine. The correct answer is option D, Monroe Doctrine. This points to Monroe Doctrine because the doctrine asserted a U.S. role in the Western Hemisphere. Copernicus points instead to a heliocentric model placed the Sun at the center of the solar system. John Brown's Raid points instead to an abolitionist attack on Harper's Ferry frightened many Southerners, and Gilded Age points instead to rapid industrial growth had deep inequality and political corruption. Question 86. Closely compare the choices and identify the correct match. Women's rights activists issued a declaration demanding equality. Option A, Saratoga. Option B, Seneca Falls Convention. Option C, New Imperialism. Option D, Glorious Revolution. The correct answer is option B, Seneca Falls Convention. This points to Seneca Falls Convention because the 1848 meeting helped launch organized women's rights activism. Saratoga points instead to an American victory persuaded France to ally with the United States. New Imperialism points instead to European states expanded control over Africa and Asia in the late 19th century, and Glorious Revolution points instead to England replaced James II and strengthened parliamentary power. Question 87. Reason through this clue and choose the answer. New foods, animals, diseases and peoples moved between the Eastern and Western hemispheres. Option A, Dust Bowl. Option B, Jane Addams. Option C, Columbian Exchange. Option D, Proclamation of 1763. The correct answer is option C, Columbian Exchange. This points to Columbian Exchange because it describes the widespread biological and cultural exchange after 1492. Dust Bowl points instead to drought and soil erosion devastated Great Plains farmers during the Depression. Jane Addams points instead to a reformer-founded Hull House to assist immigrants and the urban poor, and Proclamation of 1763 points instead to Britain tried to limit colonial settlement west of the Appalachians. Question 88. Sort the choices and pick the one. This clue describes conflict with Britain strengthened American nationalism despite mixed military results. Option A, War of 1812. Option B, Peace of Augsburg. Option C, Prohibition. Option D, 17th Amendment. The correct answer is option A, War of 1812. This points to War of 1812 because the war reinforced national pride and highlighted trade and maritime issues. Peace of Augsburg points instead to German rulers could choose Lutheranism or Catholicism for their territories. Prohibition points instead to the 18th Amendment banned the manufacture and sale of alcohol, and 17th Amendment points instead to senators became elected directly by voters. Question 89. Precisely identify which answer belongs with this clue. The Supreme Court established judicial review. Option A, Marbury v. Madison. Option B, Peace of Westphalia. Option C, Dawes Act. Option D, Louisiana Purchase. The correct answer is option A, Marbury v. Madison. This points to Marbury v. Madison because the case confirmed the court's power to declare laws unconstitutional. Peace of Westphalia points instead to treaties helped establish state sovereignty after the 30 Years' War. Dawes Act points instead to tribal lands were divided into individual allotments to assimilate Native Americans, and Louisiana Purchase points instead to Jefferson doubled the nation's territory through a purchase from France. Question 90. Assuredly select the answer that matches this clue. Britain punished Massachusetts after the Boston Tea Party? Option A, Spanish minus American War. Option B, Red Scare. Option C, intolerable acts. Option D, atomic bombings. The correct answer is option C, intolerable acts. This points to intolerable acts because the laws pushed colonies toward greater unity against Britain. Spanish minus American War points instead to the United States defeated Spain and emerged with overseas territories. Red Scare points instead to fear of radicals and communism led to raids and restrictions after World War I, and atomic bombings points instead to the United States used nuclear weapons against Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Question 91. Mark the best response to this CLEP clue. Colonies in Asia and Africa gained independence after World War II. Option A, Hammurabi's Code. Option B, printing press. Option C, decolonization. Option D, Missouri Compromise. The correct answer is option C, decolonization. This points to decolonization because the process ended many European empires. Hammurabi's Code points instead to a Babylonian law code showed written legal rules and social hierarchy. Printing press points instead to movable type spread books and ideas more quickly, and Missouri Compromise points instead to Congress balanced free and slave states while drawing a slavery line in the Louisiana Territory. Question 92. Pick in CLEP history World War II Europe. Which answer fits this clue? East Germans opened the barrier dividing Berlin in 1989. Option A, primary source. Option B, Italian unification. Option C, fall of the Berlin Wall. Option D, Augustus. The correct answer is option C, fall of the Berlin Wall. This points to fall of the Berlin Wall because the event symbolized the collapse of communist control in Eastern Europe. Primary source points instead to a document or artifact comes from the time being studied. Italian unification points instead to Piedmont, Garibaldi and nationalist politics helped create Italy, and Augustus points instead to Rome's first emperor created the Principate and launched the Pax Romana. Question 93. Look for the answer that fits this clue. The disputed 1876 election ended with federal troops leaving the South. Option A, Compromise of 1877. Option B, American System. Option C, Primary Source. Option D, Socialism. The correct answer is option A, Compromise of 1877. This points to Compromise of 1877 because the compromise marked the end of Reconstruction. American System points instead to Clay promoted tariffs, a national bank, and internal improvements. Primary source points instead to a document or artifact comes from the time being studied, and Socialism points instead to critics of capitalism called for social ownership or stronger protections for workers. Question 94. Attentively study this clue and choose the correct match. Reformers targeted corruption, monopolies, unsafe workplaces, and social injustice. Option A, Voting Rights Act of 1965. Option B, Progressive Era. Option C, World War I. Option D, Declaration of Independence. The correct answer is option B, Progressive Era. This points to Progressive Era because the period expanded regulation and democratic reforms. Voting Rights Act of 1965 points instead to federal law attacked barriers such as literacy tests in voting. World War I points instead to U.S. entry helped the Allies and increased federal power at home, and Declaration of Independence points instead to colonists justified separation by invoking natural rights and grievances against the king. Question 95. Instantly think through and identify the CLEP history answer. European leaders allowed Hitler to take the Sudetenland in 1938. Option A, Glorious Revolution. Option B, Munich Conference. Option C, United Nations. Option D, Second Great Awakening. The correct answer is option B, Munich Conference. This points to Munich Conference because the agreement became a symbol of failed appeasement. Glorious Revolution points instead to England replaced James II and strengthened parliamentary power. United Nations points instead to an international organization was created after World War II to promote peace and cooperation, and Second Great Awakening points instead to revivalism-inspired reform movements, such as abolition and temperance. Question 96. Recheck the clue and select the correct answer. Drought and soil erosion devastated Great Plains farmers during the Depression. Option A, iconoclasm. Option B, Jane Addams. Option C, Persian Empire. Option D, Dust Bowl. The correct answer is option D, Dust Bowl. This points to Dust Bowl because the disaster worsened rural suffering and migration. Iconoclasm points instead to Byzantine disputes over religious images divided church and empire. Jane Addams points instead to a reformer-founded Hull House to assist immigrants and the urban poor, and Persian Empire points instead to a large empire used satraps and roads to govern diverse peoples. Question 97. Try this quick CLEP history clue. A historical argument states a defensible claim about evidence. Option A, European Union. Option B, Crusades. Option C, Spanish Armada. Option D, thesis statement. The correct answer is option D, thesis statement. This points to thesis statement because a thesis guides interpretation rather than merely listing facts. European Union points instead to European integration created shared institutions and a common market. Crusades points instead to European Christians launched military campaigns toward the eastern Mediterranean, and Spanish Armada points instead to Spain's failed invasion of England weakened Spanish prestige. Question 98. Answer this history clue with the best option. A philosopher advocated separation of powers. Option A, steam engine. Option B, Montesquieu. Option C, Estates minus General. Option D, Louisiana Purchase. The correct answer is option B, Montesquieu. This points to Montesquieu because his ideas influenced constitutional design. Steam engine points instead to improved power technology drove factories, railroads, and mines. Estates minus General points instead to a French representative body met in 1789 during a fiscal crisis, and Louisiana Purchase points instead to Jefferson doubled the nation's territory through a purchase from France. Question 99. Resolve which answer this clue is testing Federalists' restricted criticism and immigration during conflict with France. Option A, Persian Empire. Option B, mercantilism. Option C, Monroe Doctrine. Option D, Alien and Sedition Acts. The correct answer is option D, Alien and Sedition Acts. This points to Alien and Sedition Acts because these laws raised questions about free speech and federal power. Persian Empire points instead to a large empire used satraps and roads to govern diverse peoples. Mercantilism points instead to colonies supplied raw materials and markets for the mother country, and Monroe Doctrine points instead to the United States warned European powers against new colonization in the Americas. Question 100. Unlock the correct response to this clue. Entangling alliances turned a regional crisis into a wider war. Option A, Justinian Code. Option B, World War I alliances. Option C, Romanticism. Option D, Augustus. The correct answer is option B, World War I alliances. This points to World War I alliances because alliance systems helped escalate conflict in 1914. Justinian Code points instead to Byzantine legal reform organized Roman law. Romanticism points instead to artists and writers emphasized emotion, nature, and individual expression, and Augustus points instead to Rome's first emperor created the Principate and launched the Pax Romana.